and does it and tells their friend, rather than just hearing that it's tax day is coming up and you need to file. And in hearing a family member or a friend that's already had this experience empowers them to participate and also receive those benefit, the refunds.
Off Route 33 in Bumpus.
Doing all right?
Doing good. How you doing?
There are few places with as much foot traffic as McQueen's Grocery.
381.
Owner Jagdeep Singh knows a lot of faces, but it's the one he couldn't see that still haunts him.
And when I saw him, he had a gun on me in seconds.
Shortly before Christmas 2013, a masked gunman entered his store and rushed at him behind this counter.
You think you may be gonna die. And he started the countdown. He said 5, 4, 3. He was going to shoot, I think.
Police say that robber was Daniel Mathis, a man who is now charged in connection with a murder that sent shockwaves throughout central Virginia.
Breaking news from Louisa County. A body believed to be that of Kevin Quick was found yesterday in Goochland.
The body of Waynesboro Police Reserve Captain Kevin Quick was found in this wooded area of Goochland County on February 6.
But multiple police sources telling us
investigators believe the 45-year-old was abducted and murdered a week earlier by Mathis and other members of the 99 Goon Syndicate, a gang that federal agents say is affiliated with the infamous Blood Street Gang. The indictment says the gang is responsible for a violent crime spree that began 2 years ago. All of the crimes charged under a federal statute called RICO.
RICO has frequently been used to go after gangs, whether huge gangs or small gangs.
Attorney David Smith has spent most of his career involved in federal RICO cases, both as a prosecutor and defense attorney. He even co-authored a book about it.
It's an acronym for Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations.
Passed by Congress in 1970, RICO was created to help fight one of the most notorious criminal organizations in U.S. history, the Mafia.
To basically remove the mob's influence from legitimate businesses, which of course would have unfair competitive advantages, such as bumping off your competition or threatening them.
But Smith says RICO has drastically evolved since then. The mob is no longer the only target. Many criminal RICO cases now go after street gangs, and prosecutors in the Western District of Virginia say the 99 Goon Syndicate fits that bill.
They allege a huge amount of different types of criminality.
In legal circles, part of the controversy around RICO is how much power it gives the government. That's because RICO alleges a pattern of criminal behavior, meaning it's not just one person accused of one crime. Smith says that can greatly influence juries.
When you get the big picture, it tends to greatly favor the government.
Only 4 of the 9 suspects listed in the Quick indictment are accused of being directly involved with his kidnapping and murder. Many of the gang's other alleged crimes, like robbery and assault, would be considered minor by comparison, easily handled at the local level. Smith says it was Quick's murder that likely got the federal prosecutors involved.
You know, the attitude must have been, let's get serious with this gang and throw, the heavy weapons at them.
Thank you.
Back in McQueen's, Jagdeep Singh often thinks about Kevin Quick.
I feel so bad for him.
After his own run-in with one of the accused killers, he feels fortunate that night only cost him his money.
It was my good luck I survived.
2 of the suspects have already pled guilty to the charges that they faced. The next step in this lengthy legal process, the prosecution and defense will meet to discuss potential witnesses and evidence they may present at trial. In the studio, Jake Burns, CBS 6 News. 2 years after Kevin Quick's body is discovered in a timbered area near Goochland County, members of the street gang charged with his death may learn their fate. Federal prosecutors and defense attorneys present closing arguments Monday.
That's the one opportunity that lawyers have to take all these pieces of evidence in a complex case and put them together in a cohesive picture so the jury can understand it.
During the retrial in Roanoke, federal prosecutors spent weeks calling more than 24 witnesses and presenting more than 400 pieces of evidence.
They have almost unlimited resources to put into a case like this, and they turn over every rock and find, cell phone records and text records and so forth.
Conversely, defense attorneys only called 7 witnesses total. Jurors did hear from Halisi Uhuru, one of the alleged ringleaders of the 99 Goon Syndicate. According to newspaper reports, he testified the gang's mission was in fact to improve people's lives. Since only 4 of 6 gang members are charged with kidnapping and murdering Quick, it's likely Uhuru was trying to separate himself from the others.
I don't know what happened behind the scenes, but that sort of testimony, I don't think it's going to carry a whole lot of weight unless there was some real specifics that were given.
Tim Kaine officially introduced himself as Hillary Clinton's running mate last night, and just a few hours ago, he spoke to CBS 6 about that moment and his future on the campaign trail. Jake Burns is live in Philadelphia with Kaine's message for Central Virginia. Jake?
Bill and Candace, Tim Kaine is now at the center of the national political spotlight, but he tells us he still has a place in his heart for Richmond. It's a place that he still calls home. During our conversation a few hours ago, he says he feels like he really molded his political career and his political teeth in Richmond. Remember, he was a mayor and on the city council during a time of racial tension and high crime rates in the city. He said he had to work to build consensus in order to get things done, and he says those lessons he learned in Richmond are going to help him now that he's going up against Donald Trump in his campaign.
Richmond City Council, nonpartisan, so it was, I've always been a Dem. We knew who the Dems and who the Rs were, but it was, can you work together to get results? You had to be accessible, and the results that you put together had to be really tangible. People weren't going to elect you if they couldn't see it, touch it, and feel it, and that's given me a discipline that I think has helped me and will help me in this race. Our house on North Side, we lived in the same neighborhood for 32 years, and it is getting home after the Saturday rally in Miami at 10:30 at night Saturday and being dead tired and pulling in and 350 people out in front of my house to welcome us back. That was probably the most emotional moment of the first week, and we love Richmond and it's our home.
Coming up in a few minutes, we will also talk about how Tim Kaine hopes to better relate to Bernie Sanders supporters. We'll have more information on that at 7 o'clock, a more in-depth conversation with him. He says he hopes to relate to them because they're an important demographic. And here at the Wells Fargo Arena, they've been very vocal. Many Sanders supporters still do not think that Tim Kaine is the right fit. He'll discuss that more at 7 o'clock tonight, but he also says he expects Hillary Clinton will touch on that during her speech to the entire convention later tonight. Working for you in Philadelphia, Jake Burns, CBS 6 News.
And Virginia Governor Terry McAuliffe also spoke at the DNC last night.
Yeah, I was reading that he spoke very highly of Hillary Clinton during his speech. And later, he talked with CBS 6's Jake Burns, who joins us now live from Philadelphia this morning. Jake, what did he have to say?
Well, Rob, a little bit of controversy did brew during our conversation. McAuliffe said that he thinks Clinton would support the Trans-Pacific Partnership trade deal if she is elected. Of course, Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders have long said the deal is bad for American workers and could cost jobs. Clinton says she doesn't support it, and shortly after McAuliffe made those statements, the Clinton campaign did back them up, saying that McAuliffe misspoke. But last night's seminal moment was really when Hillary Clinton became the very first woman ever to be at the very top of a ticket, officially nominated as a candidate for president of the United States. There was a group of about 200 or so Bernie Sanders supporters who walked off the convention floor here at the Wells Fargo Arena, but everyone else inside here erupted in cheers whenever that happened. And the very next person to take the stage was Virginia Governor Terry McAuliffe. I spoke to him right after that and asked what the moment like for you.
I'm the happiest guy in this arena. I mean, I'm like skipping down the streets. I mean, I got my best friend about to be president, my other great friend about to be the vice president, you know, and I'll be honest with you, this is going to be great for Virginia. We've done very well with President Obama and his cabinet. I think we can now take it to a new level.
Now, this stage right back behind me will have a very decidedly Richmond feel later this evening. Tim Kaine is expected to speak, the former Richmond mayor and city council member. Now he's a vice presidential nominee. We'll tell you what to expect from him tonight coming up at 5:30. For now, working for you in Philly, Jake Burns, CBS 6 News.
A busy morning. Vice presidential nominee Tim Kaine in Philadelphia on this third day of the Democratic convention. He caught up with the Virginia delegates at a breakfast today. CBS 6's Jake Burns is working for you in Philadelphia. He joins us live with what Senator Kaine had to say to the contingent representing the Commonwealth.
Cheryl, this was a moment for Tim Kaine today. He was his normal self, really, with the Virginia delegation. He was having fun and joking around with them today at this breakfast. He entered as the vice presidential nominee for the first time as an official nominee. He received a thunderous round of applause as Governor Terry McAuliffe introduced him, and he stood next to his wife, Ann Holton. After thanking pretty much everyone in the room that was there at the hotel in downtown Philadelphia, he then turned his focus to his opponent, Donald Trump. Kaine criticized Trump for his lack of international diplomatic experience, for his comments on women, and also for not releasing his tax returns. The big question today is what Kaine will say tonight during his primetime speech, and we may have got a preview of that during this morning's breakfast hour with the Virginia delegation.
How many times have women stood to support male candidates and male presidents and been rock solid in support of them? I think it's great for men to be able to stand and support strong women leaders all across this nation. We say we're a commonwealth. We got to live like a commonwealth. The wealth we hold in common. And there is nothing about the phrase commonwealth that has any relation to the me-first attitude of a Donald Trump. This is our Commonwealth and our country looking in the mirror and deciding what it is that we see there, and that's what's at stake. And unlike in the
Of course, Kaine is, the Trump campaign, has been very critical of Kaine of late, calling him, quote, a weird little guy, and also saying he's just another Clinton crony, someone that's just going to promote the status quo. Of course, the big question again, what will Kaine say tonight? A reporter tried to ask him that question as he was exiting the breakfast today. He said, well, you're just going to have to wait a little bit longer to find that out. Working for you in Philadelphia tonight, Jake Burns, CBS 6 News. This middle school choir performance was about the only positive for activist Larry Akeem Smith Thursday.
Now, we'd like to protect our community from a failed government leadership. We are Petersburg.
During his second State of the City address, Petersburg Mayor Howard Myers said the city is resilient and on the upswing. He asked for fiscal responsibility and accountability moving forward. But a multi-million-dollar budget deficit in 2015 and concerns about city management were left out of the speech.
How can you paint a picture that everything is so rosy? We'd like to believe that, but the reality just does not support it.
CBS 6 first told you that some Petersburg residents haven't gotten a water bill from the city for months now. Others saw their bills go through the roof. Buttons and posters brought by residents Thursday call for the city manager's job. After his speech, we tried to ask Mayor Myers about these issues.
Can't comment on it.
What about calls to have your city manager resign his position?
I'm not going to comment.
I mean, it's a lot of questions coming
about this. He won't comment on that either.
Why won't he comment, ma'am?
He will not comment on city
Mayor, is
manager.
that coming from you, sir?
I will not comment.
You can shut off the camera. Bye-bye. Thank you.
There are some problems that need to be addressed, the transparency, the answers to the citizens' questions.
You know, I've got the most amazing friends in the world.
In what may be the last time he walks out of a courtroom, former Virginia Governor Bob McDonnell reflects on the 39 months that have passed since he was convicted of public corruption.
You know, I've given my life to public service in 38 years and have loved every minute of it. And this has obviously been a personal challenge, but I know the justice system will get this right.
McDonnell has the greatest personal stake in the case, his freedom. The men and women of the U.S. Supreme Court will decide whether he serves a 2-year prison sentence. Businessman Johnny Williams showered the McDonald's in $175,000 in luxury gifts and loans, but never got the state-sponsored studies he was seeking for a dietary supplement produced by his company. Prosecutors say that doesn't matter because McDonnell used his power while in office to influence other officials on Williams' behalf.
I'm incredibly grateful to the Supreme Court of the United States for accepting the case.
And what the justices decide will also set the framework for other public corruption corruption cases moving forward, a bigger national issue that will forever have the name McDonald tied to it. The Supreme Court will allow McDonald to remain free while they consider what they are going to do. A decision is expected sometime this summer. Yeah, Reba, he didn't just talk about Donald Trump. He actually did an impersonation of him. That's grabbed a lot of headlines, and we'll have more on that in just a second. But it's very obvious that Kane's speech last night was tooled to introduce him to the nation, so Virginia and his family were key focuses of his remarks. Now, Kane said that anything he does well in politics, he learned from lessons at the local level, listening to people's stories. That's no doubt a tip of the cap to his time in Richmond as a city council member and as mayor back in the 1990s. Now, if last night was Kane's introduction to the country, the Clinton campaign has to be pretty happy about it. He was very down to earth, very casual. I was trying to gauge the crowd's reaction to what he was having to say. At the beginning of the speech, those cheers were somewhat muted, but by the end, they were thunderous. A big turning point came when he got a big laugh when he did his very own impersonation of his new opponent, Donald Trump. Take a listen.
He's got a way of saying the same two words every time he makes his biggest, hugest promises.
Believe me. It's going to be great. Believe me. We're going to build a wall and make Mexico pay for it. Believe me. We're going to destroy ISIS so fast, believe me. There's nothing suspicious in my tax returns, believe me.
I'll let you judge the quality of that impersonation on your own. The Republicans did push back last night, though. They released a statement saying that Tim Kaine is a longtime D.C. insider, a self-serving Washington politician who's only looking out for himself. That's something that a lot of people are fed up with in the political system and in the election climate we have this year. Some folks who are upset with the way Governor are Bernie Sanders supporters, a very important demographic in this election.
Very important part of our party.
How do you think you can relate to them? Because many of them are still not convinced that you are their candidate.
You know, some of it's just about getting to know one another, and my track record has been very heavily in Virginia. You know, even though I'm in the Senate, I mean, my focus has been in Virginia, so a lot of people in other places don't know me.
They're looking for a cinnamon graham cracker. We have 3 or 4 flavors of cinnamon graham cracker.
It's not just the variety of vapor products that drew Pete Richardson in. He smoked 2 packs of cigarettes a day for 25 years, then started vaping.
And after about 2 weeks, I was cigarette free.
Richardson says he spent months studying the product before helping open Mad Vapes in Glen Allen, and thinks there's a lot of misconceptions about his industry.
Don't automatically assume that it's harmful. Have knowledge behind it before you make the judgment.
But the science is still out on vapor products, says State Senator John Miller. That's one reason he proposed banning the use of e-cigarettes inside restaurants and public buildings in Virginia.
We don't know whether these e-cigarettes are safe or not, and I think we ought to err on the side of caution.
There's more smoke out of a vape than an actual cigarette.
Sean McLean owns Bandito's Lounge, one of the last restaurants in Richmond to go smoke-free. McLean says shortly after that decision was made, they decided to cut out vaping too.
That probably is healthier, but it's not any less antagonizing to non-smokers next to you.
So now that you know what to expect, try it again.
Back at Mad Vapes, Richardson says Miller's bill is unnecessary because most vapor users are respectful.
It is up to us as the vaping community to make a good name for the vaping industry.
Farmville, Virginia, a college town of about 8,000 people, is the epicenter of Campaign 2016 right now. Both Tim Kaine and Mike Pence are here on the campus of Longwood University, preparing to square off later tonight.
In boxes.
Memorabilia from Randy Fitzgerald's most memorable night, sit in a safe place in his Richmond home.
People were actually stealing these posters during the debate, so we had to hire one of the fraternities to come in and serve as police.
Fitzgerald was in charge of the logistics during the last presidential debate held in Virginia. At the University of Richmond in 1992, Bill Clinton, George H.W. Bush, and Ross Perot squared off in the first ever town hall style presidential debate.
There was such an incredible argument among the campaigns about what type of stool to have.
From the first hearing outside federal court in Richmond to the steps of the Supreme Court of the United States, former Virginia Governor Bob McDonnell said time and time again he never broke the law.
I feel like it's vindication for him.
Janet Kelly is a close friend of McDonnell and served as Secretary of the Commonwealth for his administration.
He said all along that he was blinded by the busyness of life, which as governor, that's essentially an occupational hazard.
But Kelly says McDonnell was sure he never crossed a legal line. Prosecutors saw things much differently, calling McDonnell's relationship with wealthy businessman Johnny Williams political bribery. However, it's clear the Supreme Court's unanimous decision to throw out McDonnell's convictions loomed large. The U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia released a statement that reads in part, quote, "After carefully considering the Supreme Court's recent decision and the principles of federal prosecution, we have made the decision not to pursue the case further. The department thanks the trial team and its investigative partners for their outstanding work on this case."
Anybody that knows Bob McDonnell knows that he would never intentionally break any state, federal, local, city ordinance. I mean, he is a Boy Scout.
Kelly seems to echo what Governor McDonnell hinted at Thursday. His days in politics are over, but his time serving others just beginning.
He recognizes that there are people in the system who are possibly not as fortunate as he is, that the system doesn't always work for.
We spoke with a juror who was on the original trial. She tells us she's upset by the news today, and also she feels like 6 weeks of her life were wasted inside this building.
I haven't seen a whole lot of signs.
Lifelong Chesterfield resident Tom Myers says presidential campaign signs have been scarce here this election cycle compared to years past. But the Republican wants to make clear who he's supporting by posting a Donald Trump sign in front of his business.
My contractors work hard every day, and they're finding it harder and harder to make a living. So we need somebody that's going to fight for us.
Republicans like Myers have long dominated Chesterfield presidential politics, but as the county's population has grown and its residents become more diverse, experts say the political makeup is shifting.
If you go to the doors I've been to, you'd be surprised that Virginia has been red in the past.
Cosby High School senior Camila Conquo has been canvassing in Chesterfield for Hillary Clinton.
I'm just glad more people are having an open mind here in Chesterfield. That's what I love to see.
Harry Truman was the last Democrat to carry Chesterfield in 1948. Still, when you look at the past several presidential election vote margins in Chesterfield, the GOP lead in the county has slimmed.
A wonderful place for me as far as growing up.
Ira Turner has lived on 15th Street in Manchester his whole life. As one of Richmond's many undecided voters, Turner says his vote for mayor is closely tied to the critters he sees running out of the vacant homes next door.
What goes through my mind is, are they paying rent?
The opportunity to convince voters like Turner is shrieking for the candidates with 15 days until the election.
Someone who cares deeply about our city.
Jack Barry received the endorsement of the Richmond Times-Dispatch and former city councilman Chuck Richardson over the past few days. His message to undecided voters:
$700 million a year budget with almost 5,000 employees. We need somebody that's a proven leader, that has experience, and that can bring the community together.
Joe Morrissey says he's the only candidate who has pledged to never spend taxpayer money on baseball. LeVar Stoney says he's the new energy and change from the old guard that Richmond needs. John Belisle says his campaign is building a momentum and that his experience and judgment will move Richmond forward. Lawrence Williams says a vote for him is a vote for schools and underserved communities. Bobby Jones promises he won't focus on shiny projects that don't help schools. Michelle Mosby says she's the only candidate that truly cares about the needs of all voters and promises transparency at City Hall.
The boards on the windows.
Turner is tired of hearing about ballparks and school buildings. He says missed opportunities are happening in Richmond neighborhoods.
Put more work into making sure that our communities are saved.
It's a storm before the storm, really, here at the Javits Center in Midtown Manhattan, which will host the Hillary Clinton election night party. Crews are putting the final touches on the venue here, but Manhattan will be the epicenter of the campaigns during election night. Donald Trump is holding his watch party only a few blocks away from where we stand right now. The Clinton camp says they're not resting on their laurels. National polls have them up in several critical swing states, but the polls there are also very tight. That's one reason the campaign sent Richmonder Tim Kaine to North Carolina ahead of his visit to Virginia. Our neighbors to the south seem to be a toss-up right now. Kaine stopped by a Bojangles in Charlotte, where he admitted to voters he's going to be nervous tomorrow.
We feel like if Hillary wins North Carolina, she'll be president. We really feel that way. And we love what we see in early voting. Of course, we take nothing for granted.
Donald Trump has burned through his air miles over the past couple days. He'll be in New York tomorrow, but he's been in more than a half dozen states over the past 2 days, including Virginia last night. One of Trump's main messages of late, it's time to throw out the old guard and bring in new blood to Washington. That was the message at Chesterfield County Airport. Virginia Congressman Dave Brat and Alabama Senator Jeff Sessions rallied voters there Monday. Brat says Virginia tends to break very late.
My own election here, I was down 30 by the best polling company in the world 2 weeks ago, down 30 and 110. And so I think there's a little bit of that going on here too. We'll see. I think we're in for a shocker tomorrow.
Polls open at 6 a.m. in Virginia on Tuesday. We'll be tracking both camps from right here in Midtown Manhattan. In a side hallway at the Benedictine School, a high school photo of Donald Trump's newly appointed senior strategist. Steve Bannon, the controversial media executive and Trump campaign CEO, graduated from Benedictine and grew up in Richmond. His childhood home is here in Ginter Park.
This is not the first time in Steve's life when he's been a controversial figure.
Benedictine headmaster Jesse Grapes has known Bannon for more than a decade. Grapes says Bannon was a cadet here at the end of the Vietnam War, so he wore a military uniform daily when that symbol was very unpopular.
I think Steve found himself in the middle of that sometimes, and I think that had an impact on his attitudes now.
The Virginia Tech grad served in the military, worked on Wall Street, and as a filmmaker. However, his selection to a senior position in the White House has been highly controversial. Bannon ran Breitbart News, an outlet Bannon has described as a platform for the alt-right, which members call a nationalist movement, but critics label a hate group. Breitbart published articles under Bannon's watch that some have called racist and anti-Semitic.
No, I don't worry about that.
As for Grapes, he says he personally has never seen those tendencies in Bannon.
I don't believe that you're defined by who likes you, right, and who follows you. You're defined by what you do. And I think Steve and our new president deserve the benefit of the doubt to see what they do.
That's something that advocates and voters will watch for over the next 4 years at least. Farmville, Virginia, a college town of about 8,000 people, is the epicenter of Campaign 2016 right now. Both Tim Kaine and Mike Pence are here on the campus of Longwood University preparing to square off later tonight. Clinton campaign officials tell me expect Kaine to focus mostly on policy issues tonight, but to also take a few shots at the GOP ticket. Specifically, they say look out for attacks on Donald Trump's tax returns and also Mike Pence's voting record on LGBT and women's issues. Mike Pence held a rally not far from here in Ashland, Virginia, Monday night. There, he criticized Kaine's record as governor of Virginia. He said that the financial policies of the Kaine administration hurt families here in Virginia throughout his administration. Now, Kaine is from Virginia, but local Republican officials tell me that home field advantages, that are so-called home field advantages, only apply in sports and not in politics. That being said, the basketball arena here at Longwood University has been converted into the debate hall tonight. Mike Pence and Tim Kaine will square off inside Willett Hall at 9 p.m. At Longwood University, I'm Jake Burns. Back to you.
Lyrically, I'm the remedy, just had an epiphany. Thought you had me down, but you gotta be kidding me.
Mark Kennard recognizes rhythm. The 20-year-old sings R&B, recording originals like this and performing at joints across Richmond. Music is one reason Mark says he is where he is today.
I don't even know half where I'd be at, for real. I'd probably be on the streets.
Homelessness is a reality that Mark has already experienced.
Because you're turning 18.
We first introduced you to Mark 3 years ago. He spent his teenage years in Virginia's foster care system. When he turned 18, he aged out, meaning he was never adopted. Without a family to turn to, Mark was basically on his own. At points, he says he was spending the night sleeping on a bench at the Greyhound bus station.
You lay down for a minute and you getting right back up because it's just so, and the way it's all, I don't know if you just know it at Greyhound, it's just not comfortable.
Estimates show that 500 kids every year age out of Virginia's foster care system. In fact, for many years now, Virginia has had the highest percentage in the country of kids who age out of the system.
Being the worst at our response to these vulnerable children is simply not acceptable.
Nadine Marsh-Carter with a Children's Home Society of Virginia says within 2 years of aging out, 1 in 5 foster kids experience homelessness, 1 in 4 end up in jail.
They are not criminals, they're not juvenile delinquents, they're not bad kids. They've just had disadvantages, and with the right supports, they can become a thriving, productive member of our community.
You beat the statistics, you know what I mean? You're supposed to beat the odds, not go with them.
A goal Mark is reaching with help from a pilot program called the Possibilities Project.
That's my crib.
Mark is one of 10 former Virginia foster kids who are getting help with things like housing, transportation, job training, and more.
We see the great potential in these young people, and our goal is to provide them all the supports they need to reach their full potential.
10 seconds later, beep, Medicare. Thank you for calling Medicare again.
Mark has a steady customer service job and shares this townhome with a friend that he met while they were both in foster care.
The good book says, if you lose everything and when you get everything back, you get that and some, you know what I mean? So, and that's what happened. So I'm just, I'm more comfortable now in my life. I'm stable.
Mark says he appreciates the help he's gotten and the hard work he's put in.
Her eyes said it all.
Because nowadays, life has a rhythm to it.
It doesn't matter where you came from, it's what you end up being.
How can you miss it? A brand new large painted spot in the parking lot of the Chesterfield County Courthouse.
That's pretty cool.
But what's it for?
No parking.
Probably like handicap.
Handicap, maybe?
Good guess. Keep trying.
Reserved parking place.
It's bright, so maybe it makes people happy.
Maybe everybody can agree on the color.
Boise State blue.
Sky blue.
Neon blue or
light blue.
Blue.
And how about the answer?
Safe exchange zone parking.
This is the first safe exchange zone in Chesterfield County. 3 blue spaces under video surveillance 24/7, so that people can feel safe meeting face-to-face with a stranger.
It's to help the public, help the citizens of Chesterfield County feel more secure about making any kind of transaction, whether it's online sales, child custody.
Safe zones are becoming a nationwide thing. An increase in theft stemming from Craigslist meetups has influenced that trend. Chesterfield's safe zone is open and ready to go on a first-come, first-served basis.
You've got 2 cameras right there. You've got the one that can pivot and turn. You've got the one that's stationary.
Richmond and Henrico police say they don't have safe zones yet, even though RPD is discussing the possibility. The first impression from folks in Chesterfield?
Oh, that's pretty cool. That's really safe.
That makes a lot of sense.
It's a pretty good idea.
In Chesterfield, Jake Burns, CBS 6 News.